Hey, what's up my friends? Jamrocked here with another boss guide for you for Resto Shamans. This is for Balakar Khan, which is the last boss in Nokhud Offensive. I find this boss in theory is super easy, but in practice is like so hard, just because it requires so much focus, especially on higher keys, because so many abilities can just one-shot you, and not just you, your group as well. So it requires like a lot of teamwork, and it requires you to be really, really on the ball the entire time. Having some B-reses going into this fight is very, very beneficial. So hopefully you've been playing this dungeon pretty well, and you get there with hardly any deaths and a lot of B-reses up. So just a little bit of backstory on this week with Grievous and Bursting. I've gotten to this boss like at least 5 times within timing distance, and we've like miffed it up every single time. So this is actually one where we timed it. However, that being said, we did not play perfectly. I had a really good group, but like I said, this fight just requires a lot of concentration. There's a lot that can go wrong, especially if you like hit the wrong button at the wrong time. So we do have a few deaths, but thankfully we have enough battle reses to keep up with it. So it's it all worked out, which is amazing. All right, for the first part of the boss, just get your regular DPS rotation in. Every time the tank gets hit with a bleed, just make sure you're focusing them with some healing surges and riptides. A primordial wave healing cleave on them as well is a nice way to do it. Try to be slightly conservative with your mana, and really try not to use any big cooldowns at all, because you want to save all of that for the intermission and the second phase. But thankfully I had a really great tank for this run, so he didn't need a lot of attention here at all. Oh, and for thundering, this boss, it's really important to squeeze out as much damage as you can, because it is like a 6-minute fight. That being said, it would be so tragic to lose this fight to a thundering stun, so just make sure you clear thundering safely and quickly as soon as you can. Every time he does that frontal, like the wave with the circles on everybody, I try to precast a downpour. Even if it only hits 2 to 3 people, it's a great way to just heal a couple of people up right away, and the cooldown is determined based on how many people you hit. So if you only hit a couple, it's totally fine. Other than that, chain heals are a great way to get people up from that, as well as primordial wave, and nature swiftness if you fall behind. Like a nature swiftness high tide chain heal is a great way to keep people up from that. That being said, for that frontal wave, just make sure you're on your toes, because if he targets you, like if he targets you specifically, you will be in the middle of the wave, and it's hard to get out if you're like in the middle of a cast and you get a bit greedy. So as soon as you see that wave, go into Ghost Wolf and get the hell out of there. And then you can heal after this. This won't one-shot anybody unless they're actually standing in the cone. A mistake I made here actually, so if you pop Stormkeeper at the very beginning of the fight and get some lightning bolts in that way, you'll have it up again for the intermission. I honestly, my heart was racing at the beginning of this fight just because of the like how many times I've failed it this week. So I don't even think I popped Flame Shock at the beginning, but so I ended up saving Stormkeeper because I didn't pop it in time, and then I was nervous about not having it up for the intermission. And the reason you want to have it up for the intermission, which we'll get to when we get there, is that it will provide some good healing if you use it with Ancestral Guidance. Oh, also right here, so the charge, this person got hit by it, and it's very easy to get hit even if you're not standing in the way. Like if you're standing right behind him, you will still get hit, or right beside him. Think of like a horse when they like kick back, it's kind of like that. So make sure whenever you see him about to charge, you back up a few steps just to be extra safe. Oh, and then we had another death here just from someone standing in the cone. Like I said, it's just a press of a button, or maybe he targets you in mid-cast. It can happen, which is one of the things that makes this fight frustrating. Thankfully, we had a B-res, so it's no big deal. All right, so as we get close to the intermission, so we worked out before we actually pulled this boss who was interrupting what and what stuns we were going to use. We didn't have any big CCs, so we actually just interrupt everything so they come in, and then I believe we Solar Beam, which keeps them interrupted for a bit, and then I have my Cap Totem and Thunder Shock, which helps out, and then everybody was kind of just helping out with the interrupts. So that's how we ended up doing the intermission. If you have Lust for the intermission, absolutely use it. That's the hardest part of this fight, just because if any of those ads get a lightning bolt cast off, someone's going to die. So we didn't have Lust for this, but it's okay. It just made the next part a little bit easier. All right, I was assigned to interrupt a diamond, But immediately before any casts go off, going into this phase, I popped Ancestral Guidance, my Trinket, my Racial, Cloudburst Totem, Spirit Walker's Grace, because you need to move to get out of the lightning, and then just start spamming your AoE heals. If anything looks rough or you fall behind a little bit, I would say Ascendance is probably your go-to cooldown here. So make sure you use that if you're in a pinch. And if the fight, or if this phase is lasting a little bit longer than you anticipated it to, Healing Tide is also a great one to use. I actually popped it at the beginning there just because I was extra nervous because of the issues I've had with this boss this week, but you don't, like, you can save Healing Tide if you want. Also, every cooldown you don't use, you're going to have to use during this last phase, which is great. It's not necessary, but it is going to make things easier for you. So I would say in priority order, use, if you need to for the intermission, use everything. If you don't have anything left for this last phase, it's totally fine. That being said, if you can save a couple of things, like Slink is a great one for the lightning spear that he does that pulls everyone in. And then also, if you can save Healing Tide, it's also great for this phase when he does the cone that kind of damages everyone. All right, otherwise for this fight, it's important, get as much DPS in as you can during this phase. That being said, it's more important to stay alive and heal your group mates. So that's, make sure you're not being greedy and standing in these thunder circles. Make sure you're getting out of the wave that he does right away, the frontal cone. And if you get targeted with the spear, oh sorry, I should have mentioned this. Do not use Astral Shift during the intermission if you can avoid it, because you do need it for this phase. His Thunder Spear will 100% one-shot you from anything like maybe a 22 up. So make sure you have Astral Shift for that. And if you're spec'd into Earth Elemental, that's a great way to increase your health as well via the 15% health increase. And on that note, anybody else who gets targeted with the spear, and you'll see this if you rewind and kind of see what I've done, both first phase and this last phase, anybody who gets targeted by a spear, throw a quick Riptide on them, because that is going to give them your Ancestral Vigor health increase, and that might help them survive. All right, I think we have someone, no, we don't have someone die here. Okay, that's great. We do have someone die later on, which is totally fine. We're able to complete this with 4 people. And so as you can see, I'm pretty much just popping my trinkets, my racials, and then I think I pop Ancestral Guidance as well as soon as they come up, more because I was nervous. But if you think of it this way, like if people are going to die, hopefully it's towards the end of the fight. So if you use everything you have to keep people alive as long as you can, that's really going to help in case people do die later on, because it's going to keep people alive as long as possible so that they can do as much DPS as possible. Like if you have someone die, or even 2 people die towards the very end when he has 10% health left, it's no big deal. You'll still kill him. And then, sorry, another thing I didn't mention, obviously, when the tank is getting hit with the Conductive Strike, make sure you're dispelling them right away. I had a warrior, so he was probably spell reflecting the majority of them, which is great. But if you don't have one, you will have to dispel. Anyway, so we had someone die there. I don't know if they were in the cone or maybe they overlapped a circle, but either way, totally fine. We have like 10% health left, so with 4 people we can do it. You just need to keep calm and keep healing everybody up. Don't panic. And it's a good general rule for this fight as well. Like, don't panic if people die. If you have B-reses or whatever, like, it's not over until it's over for this fight. So just keep going. Make sure you're doing whatever you can to keep everybody alive here. Another thing I didn't mention is for any of these spears, whether you're targeted or not, try to go into Ghost Wolf. Like, make sure everybody's topped up, but then try to go into Ghost Wolf as soon as possible for that Spirit Wolf talent DR. The longer you're in Ghost Wolf before it happens, the less damage you're going to take because of that DR. So all right, and so this was honestly such a happy moment for me to see him die within the timer, just because of the trouble I've had with him in this fight. But as you can see, this was not the cleanest fight in the world. We did have quite a few deaths. Thankfully, we had enough B-reses to keep up with it, and this group is awesome, so we did enough DPS to time it even, despite the deaths. But yeah, this fight is tough. Like I said, in theory, it seems super easy. Like the mechanics by themselves are not that hard, but with everything that's happening and the amount of damage he does per mechanic, it can go south pretty quickly if you have people dying. So just keep a cool head. Use your cooldowns as needed. Don't be stingy with anything. It's more important you keep, like I said before, it's more important you keep people alive as long as possible. If a couple of people die towards the very end, so be it. But it's very important that you keep people alive as long as you possibly can. And if you have lust for the intermission, that's great. But if not, it should be up towards the end, or towards, somewhere in the last phase. which is great. Make sure you're on the ball and you pop that as soon as you can, because once again, you want to be able to get in as much damage as you can before people, you know, maybe die from other things. But yeah, that's it. I've slowed this video down, as you've probably noticed, and I also have a spell tracker on the top left, as I normally do. So if you want, you can go ahead and wind this, sort of check out the order in which I'm casting everything. You know, put your own sound on if you don't want to listen to my voice. But yeah, and that's it. If you find yourself in here, good luck. I love this dungeon, even though it's super long and super stressful. It's a lot of fun to heal. And it really feels great when you do time it. So best of luck, and I'll see you next time.